Welcome to Inspire Saratoga, a show that highlights the people and stories that make our home a place of strength, inspiration, and success. I'm Michael Kurkowski, physical and mental performance coach and resident of Saratoga Springs. And in this show, my mission is to connect with the great people who also call this place home, hear about their work and what they do for this town, and share their insights and experiences in health, wealth, and happiness for you, my neighbors. Thank you for joining me wherever you are in town. Let's dive in.
And we're live. Spencer Sherry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So thank you for having us back in Saratoga Arts.
My place of work, yeah.
It is your place to work, so I appreciate you coming in. So I just love this place. You know, as I said before, I've walked by so many times and got a chance to come here a couple different spots. It's a great spot. And now you're the grants coordinator.
Correct.
Here.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people, as you said, will walk by this place and never come in.
Exactly.
We have a lot of people in here that's the first thing they say, they've never been here, walk by all the time.
Yeah.
There's one going on, yeah, try it, yeah.
Well, I mean, next to the famous Congress Park, which is like the huge spot of Saratoga.
Yeah.
So how long have you been working here?
I've been here since last June, so pushing a year and a half now.
Okay. So what brought you to Saratoga originally? Because you're not from this area.
I'm not. I'm from a little town called Lawrence, out by Cooperstown, Oneonta area. And I came up to the capital region for college, tried out a couple different ones, kicked around a little bit, and then ended up I moved to New York for a little bit. When I came back, my friend from high school was living in Amsterdam, New York, and so he was like, "Come work with me, and I got a place we can crash, and just stay with me." So I moved to Amsterdam first, and then I bopped over to Galway. All these European cities with their hotels upstate New York. And so then I moved to Galway, same friend group with them. And then my now girlfriend bought a house in Greenfield Center, just outside Saratoga. So we moved there about 4 years ago, in 2020. So
yeah. What's your experience been like in Saratoga? Like, what's the good things about it? Like, how do you feel about this area?
I love it. I love it because I like the capital region in general because it's big enough that there's always something different to do. We're Boston, New York, Montreal, Adirondacks, like everything. It's close enough to everything, but it's small enough and community based enough that you can really get known for doing a thing if you do it well enough or just loudly enough. And so that was kind of. That's why I grew up in such a small town that I really like the feel of having a real community and running into people you know on the street every time I walk down on common grounds, whatever it is. So that's I really think that Saratoga is a nice balance of that particularly.
It is. There is some. It's been a common speaking point with people I talk to about Saratoga. It's like it is that mixture, especially people who have lived in a city where you have a little bit of that busy feeling, but it's also enough outside of it town plus like the mountain type area. It really is a interesting, unique blend.
Yeah, it's perfect for me because I love meeting new people, love new folks and getting to know new people and what they do, but also I really love running into old friends and people that camaraderie. Just sense of like your friends and your communities everywhere, and so it's the perfect blend of both of those things.
Now, with your job at working in Saratoga Arts with grants, what is your day-to-day like? What is actually the position that you work with?
So the grants coordinator job is really at its core just running one program. We get about this year and hopefully next year about $250,000 from NISCA, the Council of the Arts, every year. To re-grant to artists in our community. So it's our county, Saratoga County, Fulton County, and Montgomery County. So my job is facilitating the entire program, creating the application, getting people to apply, assembling panels to vote on who gets the money, and then distributing it, doing all the reporting, and then around we go. So the only thing I don't do is decide who gets the money, which is actually great because that means that I can really spend a lot of time with applicants to make sure that their application is as good as it can be. I can work with people one-on-one to try to make it better, make their project a little bit more comprehensive and wholesome to hit the marks that the panels are going to be able to get. So
I was so excited to hear when you told me about that, because I mean, especially with arts and the creative side of it. One of the hardest things to do is just actually get some capital to do the things that you want to do and get some exposure out from there. I'm sure you've had a lot of experience with a lot of people. What's the next level?
And myself, yeah, 100%, yeah. No, it's tough, and then a lot of people that work with, there's institutions, we give grants to nonprofits, government, municipalities, and individual artists. And so a lot of the nonprofits now are year to year, they do a summer concert series every year, or some other type of arts programming or education at the place that they're at. So they've kind of got a well-oiled machine, and I have to get but a lot of the individual artists that come in, they're people that I lately have been just pulling off the street and going, hey, I can get you money, or come write an application, here's what you need to do. And those are the people that truly are, they're almost suspicious of me when I tell them,
Right.
hey,
What are you talking about? Yeah.
right, you know, when if you don't work in nonprofits, or you don't work in any sort of governmental adjacent role, the idea of government funding or grant funding just seems very lofty. And so convincing just normal people that maybe work at a coffee shop or the kayak shack, and are also painters, and they want to get their work out there, convincing people like that no, this is real and it's accessible, and I'm here to make it even more accessible to help you. It's been really fun to see those people come around, and this year was my first year, and I know for a fact that the 4 or 5 people that I personally pulled in all got grants. And so to have the kind of faith in organizations like this restored by the people that they're supposed to be servicing feels very good.
Yeah, that's all, yeah, because if you don't know anything about that system, you think of a grant like a big.
So daunting,
Yeah,
then you look at an application that's pages long and you go, well, I can't do. But if you understand how it's broken down and what each of the questions or things that you have to submit, it's not that much work. It's, you know, and even if it took you a day, it'd be the easiest $3,000 you made in a day. You know, so like trying to reframe it into that perspective is like it's worth taking the time to try this and do this.
Yeah, it's similar to like a scholarship. You think like, oh, they give like full scholarships out. So it's like, no, there's small ones out there if you do have it, and there's people that want to help you.
Yeah.
In that way. And I wanted to, you know, start this conversation with that, because I'm sure listeners, there's a lot of people who might not know that these opportunities are out there. So if you are creative or somebody who's in the arts, like just throw your hat in the ring and see what happens.
Come here and talk. There's a lot of different avenues. There's a lot of different ways. Even if you think that, oh, I don't necessarily qualify, or you see something that, oh, I don't live in that county, or like, there are ways. There are ways that we can make it work, and also available all over New York State. The program that I run is digged up amongst, I think, 20 or 25 different sites all over the state. So even if I personally cannot help you get a grant, I know other people that can. So it's worth at least a conversation with me to find out what the options are.
Beautiful, absolutely love it. So to get into you and more of the work that you do, because you're in filming, you've been doing that now for a while. So what was your first kind of introduction into filming? Was this like the first like arts and kind of creative that you were really interested in, or how did this come about?
I went to school for music first. I went to St. Rose, rest in peace, down in Albany for music industry, because I didn't want to do education. I don't want to teach, but I also didn't think I was good enough to skate by on just performance alone. So I was like, all right, I'll do industry. I got a couple friends that do that and learn the back end, whatever. Went there for a year, had a great time. It was a great school, but expensive, and I realized it's like, this is not really what I want to do. So that was the first art that I tried. Went for criminal justice for a year somewhere else, which was a weird pivot. And that was after that, I was like, okay, I should stop setting my money on fire and figure it out. And then I've been the whole time. I liked stories, and I liked coming up with stories. We really liked films when we were kids, me and my friends. So I had a couple of stories, and there weren't anything necessarily written down in like a particular format, like a screenplay or a novel or whatever. It was just like, oh, I just came up with this cool story, this cool idea. And And then once I realized that film was something that you could maybe get into and was accessible at an independent level, I was in Albany again at the time living there. And said, oh, you know what, I'll go to UAlbany, it's cheap, tuition's cheap because I don't live on campus, and I'll take some film classes. They don't have a formal program, but I might learn something. Got to building school. And so I, just before the end of my first year, an assistant director / producer from New York City came up to give a lecture and a screening of a movie he'd done. His name's Trotter. And I latched onto him afterwards. Like, how do I get in? He was on the board of a director's guild training program. So I'll take the test right now. And told me to pump the brakes, but here's my email. Let's talk. I'd be really interested in doing stuff. And then a couple of weeks later, I got back and forth. He offered me a job on a Netflix movie in New York City. And first week of shooting was finals week. He was like, if you can be down here for 7 weeks, I'll just give you a job. Okay, peace, see ya. So dropped out the second time to go work on a Lucy Liu movie. Yeah, so then I worked in the city on big budget stuff on 3 or 4 different projects over the course of about a year. And that was my first introduction on set. I've never been on a movie set before, and I was just thrown right in. And thank you to everyone that carried me, because I didn't really need to carry in.
Sure.
But yeah, and then after I figured out how a set ran and learned a lot, absorbed the process and the organization of filmmaking and the professionalism of it and how things are supposed to run. I came back up here and tried to do my own version of that on a smaller, much more affordable scale.
Yeah. What was it about his lecture, Lance? Was it something specific that kind of spoke to you, or was it more kind of like you're looking for an idea of what to do, and it seemed like this could be an avenue that you can get to? Kind of what was the inspiration behind reaching out to him and trying to go down this path?
Definitely that he was right in front of me and I could grab him and touch him. But also seeing someone that works in the industry and at that high of a level, and for that long. The first film he worked on was The Untouchables. And he was young, and he was just breaking in. And so seeing someone, you hear all the time how jaded the industry is and how bitter it makes people, and it's all dog and dog, but he just had an excitement still about him, and he also wanted to talk to students. So he had the director of the film studies department gather students together that were the ones that she knew were most interested in actually doing this and thought they could get something out of it, because he wanted to have a little session beforehand and after with the kids that were serious. And then he was like, I'm open, ask me anything, I want to talk, I want to share the knowledge. He was also coming back to his alma mater after 30 years, and so he was just very excited and very accessible. And I've always said that I think that a lot of the success, particularly for artists, isn't necessarily that classic trope of you're playing at a bar and the guy in the back of the room sees you and discovers you and falls in love with your talent. But it's just it's as simple as this guy who had no real reason to go out on a limb for anyone, but had an opportunity to, just saying, okay, sure, because you have to, as someone trying to make it, someone that wants something, communicate that and say what you want as loudly and as often as you can to anyone that will listen. And it just takes one guy going, you know what, sure, fine. And nothing means nothing to him, but everything to you. Like, that's more often than not how it's not someone sees your potential or talent.
Right.
It's, oh, you have to be on Broadway now, you know what I mean? It's,
Oh, I'm sure. It's probably like 10 to 1 at least.
yeah, and so that's what whenever anybody asks advice that I have to give, just figure out what you want and just say it out loud and be confident in that to everyone. And chances are someone's saying, oh, fine, here you go, try it. Here you go.
That's about as good of a definition of the law of attraction that I think.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, often we think of that as like, oh, I'm just visualizing everything and then just sit back and just wait for the universe to give you everything. It's like, no, it's giving you an opportunity to see things that are out there, but then when they're there, just throw it out there and just jump in. But I actually had this conversation not too long ago about like the person that sees someone like on the beach or like in there and these great stories of like discovery. It's like, yeah, I think there's probably like 8 of those. in the
Right,
world.
yeah.
It's like for all those, there's thousands that just kept putting, their chips in the middle of the table and just ate shit for a while, but then eventually you get that opportunity just to
And then,
explore it.
right, and then you keep going, like you got the opportunity, right, like you put me on a Netflix movie and after that, it's on you, you can get that foot in the door, but you still have to continue to learn and grow and digest and what you want and be capable and really practice, whatever the, analogy might be for your particular art. For me, it was just not give up and keep showing up, like I said, even though it was 16-hour days, but.
What was that experience like jumping right into like such a big budget type thing? Because I was thinking a lot of people probably go the small route and then they work their way out there. You kind of seemed like tossed to the deep end right away.
100%, yeah, 100%, and it was incredibly daunting, and at the time, I didn't even realize how far behind I was than everyone else. So on a normal production, there are 5 production assistants that are staffed and they're every day and they all have functions. I was the 6th staff PA, which is not something that you find, especially not for someone that is totally green and has never worked on anything before. I am dead weight and needs to be taught everything. And so it didn't occur to me. So I'm there, and the other PAs were very nice, but they were like, so who like, are you a must hire? Like, so who's your uncle? Like, who do you run it, like that type of thing? And I'm like, no one. What about you guys? You know what I mean? I have no idea. And and it wasn't until a little bit later that after just working on it and hearing from other people, I was like, oh, I am very, very fortunate that this guy was just like, here's a free training basically. And now all of those people had to do their jobs as well as try to teach me what a honey wagon was, which is so basic knowledge. It's the trailer that all the toilets are in and the gas stays in. It's like where you go to get, in the office. And so like it's the office of the film set in a truck. And it took me a couple days to like, what's that? I don't understand. What does that mean? And they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was daunting for sure. I got yelled at a couple times, made Lucy Lou very angry. And then had a lot of fun at times. So
However, from Kill Bill, it's probably not the right person.
Correct. She's excellent. She's just like a professional to a T. And if like she feels like the communication isn't strong, which is what happened. There was a communication breakdown. It was my fault. She got a little bit frustrated, and then I had a very tense. I was the one handling her, so to speak, and letting her know when she needed to come back on set. And so it was a very tense elevator ride. Something out of the movie, I was just ashamed in the corner and just standing there, hands on hips, shaking her head as we get out to the set. Yeah, it was
It's like, oh yeah, you might feel like 3 feet tall and just
100%. Yeah, and she's not a very big person, but she intimidated the shit out of me that day.
No doubt, yeah. So what was the journey like then, going from working in New York City, then eventually moving on, going kind of more of the independent route and then getting into your own filmmaking?
Yeah, tried a couple things. We knew a cinematographer that had just got started, that was kind of friends of friends in the area. So we tried a couple things with him that fell apart for various reasons. And it was just trial and error. And now I'm happy that they fell apart because it was not really reflective of what I want to be putting out there and known for. But it was good practice at the very least. Which I needed on my own, running everything on my own on no budget. And then by the time my first real film that I put out a couple of years ago came around, I felt much more prepared and knowing all this coming and being able to break everything down from a producer standpoint and know everything that I needed. Saw a lot of the mistakes that I made in practice, so to speak, in the last couple of years. And made it a little bit easier to manage. But the big thing that I took away from that is how important the community building is, and that level of promotion and marketing where you're trying to get support and people to engage with the work. Because filmmaking is a weird art as far as asking. It's the most expensive one for sure. And then you're asking people to contribute to it and support it and donate to it. But you won't see any sort of finished product until at least a year from now. If we're really quick, a year from now, but more likely a year and a half to 2 years. And so it's strange to ask people for help. And so I always came from a place of how do we keep people involved and how do we get people invested in this and to really be and feel like they're a part of the work that's going on.
Right.
So there were constant opportunities throughout the promotional process, the announcement, even to filming, there were opportunities that I intentionally tried to curate. So it's like, look where we are now. Here's how you can engage with us this step of the way. You know, so yeah, that's something you don't get in the city, which is why I would never move back there and try to do stuff down there. Is because that level of community support that you build doesn't exist. It's so much more competitive, and more than anything, it's expensive. And you're networking with industry professionals, but no one's gonna wanna make your passion projects for free on weekends after working a 70-hour work week with you 5 days. It's just not gonna happen. So being able to come up here and source locations or props or an actor or whatever it might be, when people just go, oh, this is exciting, I'd love to be a part of this. Absolutely, here, use my motel, use my truck, use my old car, like whatever it is. It just, it makes it so much better. But I have all that foundational knowledge from working on real big budget sets and seeing the machine that they are, and how to try to emulate that in a professional setting.
What's the kind of the biggest differences? I mean, I'm sure the logistics of it from a big budget to more of an independent is very different, just the scale of it. But as far as like the process of like the creation and kind of putting it together, like what's some of the biggest differences from something like a big budget thing versus more like an independent type of?
Definitely the amount of people, people involved.
A lot of personalities.
Yeah, a lot of personalities, a lot of managing of those personalities. Independent, and I will tout it too. Independent is just everyone's so excited to be there. You really don't run into as many egos, and that stems from whoever's putting it on, right? Like I try very intentionally to run a set that everyone on set knows. Like, if you have an idea, shout it out. If you think we should be trying something or doing something different, let me know. If we have time and the ability, but I want to really feel, for everyone to feel like this is our movie, this is our set, this is what we're making, as opposed to being on a big budget set. If you're a production assistant, you are
your PA one,
your PA, yeah, and you're, the claim is that they're the most important people on the set, they're the communication and keep everything moving, but you're not treated that way on set, but on the back end, everyone will tell you the most important part. And so there's a disconnect between the quote unquote above the line people and the below the line people, which make it, just make things a little bit more distant and contentious. And that's not to say that every film is like that and every big budget film is like that. I worked on really, really awesome sets, but it's because of the money going into it, because and a lot of it's the money as well. So those things cost tens of thousands of dollars a day to be made. So if you break it down and someone didn't communicate, we had to run back and get something, we missed something, that is measurable, like $100, $100, $100, you gotta get $100, like you're bleeding money if you're not being productive. And so that's what's really fun about the independent sets, is that we're not paying everyone crazy industry rates that they're getting paid, but we also don't have that many people, and so the stress level, if you know how to schedule your day, isn't as intense, and you can afford to have fun, you can afford to try things out and experiment. Whereas the big budget stuff really feels like a machine that you better be on board, or you're hanging off.
So I'm sure it's not. I mean, I'm sure it's not coming from malice from people. It's like it's probably just the pressure of like that time. It's like, you think like, oh, it's an hour like later. It's like, no, that's actual real money. When you break down the logistics of it, it's like it's gone. Like, yes, some tempers are probably gonna flare when the stakes are really high.
It's like the people in New York. It's like, no, nobody in New York is mean. They're just, they have to get to work. They're on the move. Like nobody on the street, nobody's just standing around looking other than tourists, and that's why that the relationship exists. So it's the same thing. We're just like, gotta get stuff done, gotta keep moving, gotta be productive. But I couldn't have had more fun on a lot of the stuff I've worked on up here, because you do a lot, if you do it right, you do have that time and flexibility to really enjoy what you're doing. You've assembled it, you know, it's like going to a party, like you've assembled all these cool people and these great talents and great personalities, and you're making something together. It should feel a little bit more like a fun party or workshop that you're all doing together, instead of crazy stressful work. So
Oh, yeah, well, I'm sure too with that, it's like, it's the faster versus further, right? It's like faster alone, but further together. Sometimes you can truly think about the end goal, you just gotta get to the next step and just build it. I'm sure just the feeling of finishing something like that too.
Yeah.
After all that work, that's gotta be one of the best feelings ever.
100%. It's an incredible feeling. When you wrap shooting, you finish that last day, that last scene, that's a wrap, everybody, or it's a celebration. And then you go to the editing room and it's a whole nother monster all over again.
I'm sure.
Because you're putting it together and you feel good about it, and you feel good about certain cuts and certain pieces. But there's no color, there's no sound, there's no special effects or anything. So then you go, okay, I think this is still a good movie and what I want it to be. But it like looks real rough right now, and then things start to come together and you start to feel a little better. And this is a months long process. And then at the end of it, even after you're done, when it's finished, you put the last final touch on the credits and the whole thing, you can watch it, I have no idea if this is a good movie. Sure. You're too close to it, you've watched it too many times, you've lost all objectivity, you're like, okay, now I just have to trust that the original blueprint that I wrote a year or two ago at this point is correct, and this will hit, and you don't know until it's not. So the feeling of finishing it is great, and then there's a whole nother world of trepidation and security that you're delving into.
Let's just
Right,
run with it.
Yes, it never stops, so, but yeah, it feels good when it's all done.
So that process you have of that collaboration of like ideas, like bringing to me and stuff like that. Is that something that's always kind of been a part of your nature? Is that something you learned on the process? Like, no, I think the best way to really put this together, when you have your hands on the wheel and you're directing, you're in the driver's seat.
Sure.
Bringing that in, is that something that was learned, or did you always just kind of innately feel like this is the best way that I can put that, this is gonna come together?
I think I think that I've never been the type of person that my parents won't disagree. I've never been the type of person that thinks I'm right all the time. I think that I'm pretty open and want to learn from people and want to hear different perspectives. And also just being, you know, it's difficult. It's strange to me, people that are like, no, I made a decision, it's the right one, and that's it. And I don't need to hear anything else. That's so odd to me, it's so boring. It's one thing to receive a bunch of information and then try to make an informed decision based off of that, but people that are just like, it's my way or the highway, like I don't need to be informed about anybody else's perspectives or ideas, like that's so scary to me. I do not have that level of either confidence, arrogance, ego, whatever you want to call it. I've just never been that way. But some of the best stuff is stuff that people on set have just shouted out or tried. My cinematographer that I've used now twice, Jim Powers, he will occasionally, I'll set up a shot, I'll say, this is great, here it is, static shot right here. And then I'm watching the monitor and I realize that he's putting a little mood in it. He's putting a little spin as we descend down, or as the guy's leaning over the edge of the boat, he's tilting with him just a little bit, and to give it that depth. And like, so those are my favorite shots in the movie, and I didn't tell him to do that. It's not my idea. I didn't have the probably experience to know that that's a more dynamic way of capturing this. But this cinematographer who's been in the game for 20 years knows how to do a little bit like that. And then I remember one day, the final day of shooting, we were at a lake, we're at a lake pond, and we got the stuff that I wanted. I had the 5 or 6 shots I wanted to get, the actors soaked, you know, we're in the lake, everyone's half in the lake. I'm in my swim trunks trying to manipulate the boat or whatever we're doing. And I was just like, hey everyone, we're here. I'm not getting back in the water, I'm not getting everyone soaked again. So if you have anything that you want to do, or just throw out a weird fun shot, do it. And a couple people suggested stuff, we shot it all, and a lot of that stuff ended up in the trailer for the movie as a really cool, interesting dynamic thing that if I didn't have, I don't know how I would have cut that trailer at the end of the day, so, yeah,
That's so fun. It's like, that's where really the gold comes out, when you just open to those new things. It's, what's coming to my mind is kind of like, a great coach, like in sports, it's like you can have the best game plan before a game.
Right.
But if you only stick to that and you're not adjusting to what the defense is doing or the other team, then your ego's taking over, and then it's like you're just bullheaded just going through, versus no, make adjustments, like this is how the game's flowing. You better lean on your strengths of the people that you have around you to figure it out, otherwise,
Right.
They're gonna figure out in 2 seconds.
And it's adaptability, and anyone that's ever made a film seriously will tell you that you need to be able to rationally, calmly, and quickly pivot to things. When things, the only reason we were at the lake that I just described is because we were on the day after 2 hours of being there, kicked out on another location.
Yeah.
We were like, I had 15 people with me, all getting paid to be there one way or the other, and so it's like, what do we do? And so like being able to, adapt and shift and adjust. And not just rely on those blueprints is such an important part of that art in particular.
That's my favorite thing about movie. I'm living so vicariously right now.
Yeah,
It's just my first thing I wanted to do was be a filmmaker. I love movies.
Oh, really?
Growing up, and then hearing like some things, like I know like Glory is one of my favorite movies, and that
Sure.
shot of Denzel Washington with the tears coming down. That was not part of the plan. They just kept the camera rolling because they're like, oh my god, like just keep it going, and then all of a sudden it became this huge, great, cinema piece that everybody knows now. So,
and that comes from top down. That is being able to give the room and the breathing room to be able to find things like that. If you're on a go schedule and you pack your schedule so tight, that comes down to just like production coordination. It's like how many pages do we have to get done today? How many shots are we do? How many setups are there? Like, if this is a stacked day and you're only getting 2 or maybe 3 opportunities per shot before you have to move on, then that's when the sloppiness starts to come in. You'll start making mistakes. You think, you know what, we don't need that shot. I'm just gonna cut that so we can get one more of this. And then turns out you didn't need that shot. And now the lights, you're losing the light. And now we get 5 more daytime shots, and now it's sunset. What do we do? Yeah, so there's a really tightrope balance to walk between you don't want to take your time and add a bunch of extra days and budget wise paying people to be there for a lot longer than they have to be, but at the same time you don't want to pack you don't want to, that's the only thing that you're thinking about in the schedule, because that's what's going to happen. The product, the art's going to suffer for it at the end of the day, because you don't have what is also very just fun space to be able to be like, no, let's play around a little bit. Let's try different things. Yeah.
So how much of directing then is like, how much work is it before you even like shoot the first shot to get everything set so you can have these opportunities to be in the moment and kind of play and adaptability? What's like the production work like?
Turns out it's a lot, and at the time, so the first film that I made, it's called The Monkey. It's a Stephen King adaptation. Ended up being about an hour long. It was a 45-page script, and I wrote it, and I wanted to direct it because I knew that I wasn't going to get enough credit for just writing a Stephen King adaptation, but I really wanted to. And I saw it, and there was elements like, no, I shouldn't take full ownership of this, and I wanted to really be my vision, and I might as well just direct it as well. And there was so much pre-work and pre-production work to be done that by the time we were a couple days out from shooting, I was like, I'm never directing. This is so cool, because I was producing too, and so I had, when you're doing that pre-production work as a director, you have to know basically at least a rough idea that every single shot that you're going to do, every single scene, how's the blocking going to work, where are people going to stand, how you should storyboard if you can, so that you can communicate all these things to your DP, so he knows what equipment he needs to bring in for that day. Do we need the dolly? Are we going to have a drone? Like, I'm not going to bring a U-Haul full of everything I own every time. So I need to know what's coming. And so all of that, you basically have to imagine the entire movie in your head, and then write it down on paper in a way that 3 different departments can understand what you need for those scenes in those days. And having to do that while worrying about where people were gonna park, who was gonna get food, we still don't have that piece of wardrobe, I gotta find that by Friday. Did the guy with the old car call me? Do we have our location? I haven't heard from the funeral director guy in a while, I wonder if we can get in there. All like that coordination and then all the art stuff. Just horrifying to have to do together, particularly for my first time. All in one go on a project that was, and you know, ended up being a feature length film. So that was, yeah, but then 3 or 4 days into shooting. We just had a really great day or stretch of days, and I'm on set and we're directing, and things are going well. We're gonna make I can already tell that we're gonna make the day, it's gonna be perfect. And it's just like, I really like directing. This is a lot of fun. It's fun to work. It's fun to see it happen. So now I realize I'm not gonna do both at the same time. And that's worked out so far. I produced something that my best friend and I directed, and that was a totally different process for me. It was great. I do all that logistics work, I get us the building, I get us everyone set, logistics and travel, and everyone's there, and then as soon as we're ready to go, I go, oh, okay, make the movie. And I'll be downstairs.
That's so funny.
Let me know how it goes. Let me know if you need anything. And it's awesome. So the pre-production work on directing is and you're coordinating all these departments, and you know, in theory, people should be asking you questions like, oh, look at this outfit for this character. Does this work? Should we go bluer? Should we go jeans? What should we do? Art department, like at props. Hey, it says here in the script you want to have a phone. Is this flip phone? Is iPhone? What do you want? You know, stuff that's minutia. And having a good experienced crew of people that can take as many of those little decisions off your plate as possible is good, and also trust that you trust them. Like I have the production designer that I use, and the art department, and the cinematographer, and the gaffer who lights everything. Just I trust that they know more about what should be on screen in a lot of ways than I do. I like broad strokes, I like bare bones, and then everyone else comes up with these little touches that. But I also think that that's a huge part of quote unquote management in general, is knowing when to let the people that you've hired to do the jobs do them and trust them to make their own decisions and really bring themselves into the work and into the art instead of literally micromanaging everything that's going on. And it's so much fun when someone comes and goes, hey, look what I did. Look at how I made this or did this thing. And I go, awesome, cool, what a fun surprise for me. And I didn't have to make that decision. That's great. I love it.
Yeah. It sounds like a survival tactic of like, sometimes you just have to have blind faith that person knows what they're doing.
And sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And then that's a pivot you have to make too, but I mean, I'm very fortunate with the people that I've worked with and the crew that I've kind of cultivated. I just, you know, I'm very good at rolling with the punches when they do come, and all right, but there's never, I don't think I've ever like gotten angry or in a verbal altogether or anything on set. It's just like, okay, that's all right, that it is what it is. What do we do now? That sucks, let's go. You know,
so with the monkey, I'm curious about this because it's a Stephen King short story adaptation. A lot of adaptations of Stephen King over the years. What was it about this story that kind of jumped out at you? Like, why did you want to make this film? Was it something specific, like when you read it and wrote it, or what was it about kind of this particular movie?
Well, the logistical side is Stephen King had done, until this year, he stopped it, but he had done a program where young filmmakers can adapt some of his short stories for no money as long as they don't profit from it. You have to apply, and there's this big list of stories, and I thought it was all of his stories were up for grabs. So I was kind of already reading some of his stuff. I read it for a while, and I was in my mind, I'm like, all right, this is an option. So if I read something I really like, maybe I'll try it. And so then I read The Monkey, and it had all the things that I liked about the horror genre, which is the horror elements of it, really, really good drama elements that the good horror movies, I think, horror stories are about the normal characters and the people, and the horror device, all it does is serves how they interact with each other and the decisions that they make. And you're watching character development, and just the instigator is this horrific thing. And so that's The Monkey to a T, and it's got that perfect amount of like absurd, can't be, it's not a really serious, dark horror, gotta be a spooky monster and all those things. It's like, no, it's just people dealing with a toy that kills people when it claps. And that's, I like the comedy and things. I really love dark comedy. And so the whole story read to me is this very comedic, darkly comedic drama, tragedy, piece. And it helped that the monster was something that I could buy on eBay for $100.
Beautiful, yeah.
And that's my entire VFX budget is just buying a thing that already works. And so so that's why I wanted to do it in the first place. And then I developed the entire idea. I modernized it in a unique way. The original story was written in the 80s, so it's set in the 80s. And it flashes back to the 50s when the father of the two sons in the story was a kid. I shift that whole narrative device up a generation. And so now one of the sons in the original story is an adult. He's the main character, and then we flash back to the 80s in the actual story. And so it's almost a sequel adaptation in a way where I take the same characters and expand them into the future, but flash back to actual moments from the book, the original story, just like they did in the last one. So that was also a fun thing too. It's like, oh, well, how do I don't want to do 2 period pieces for my first film. How do I modernize at least half of this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. How to make a story like that and kind of think outside the box of like modernizing it or kind of changing out, like still having the essence of what it is, but kind of putting your own creative spin on it there. Is there a process that you have for that? Like when you're thinking of ideas, like does it something like just come to you like, oh, this is the direction I want to take? Or do you do like more of like a brainstorming process of these are some ideas that I could play with? Like, is there a specific process for building creativity?
Sure. So not for me. For me, it's all internal. I almost never put anything on paper until I feel like it's fully formed in my head. And I'll just let things sit. I'll maybe think of an idea and then have a true brainstorming session, but it's really just, it's me in the car, or it's me in bed, or me just hanging out at my house and just thinking and just like playing around with stuff. That's my favorite part of the process, I think, is the story broad strokes. I was like, ooh, and then what can happen? What would be an interesting dynamic? And then the minutiae and the little touches of color you can find later, or when you're on set. But for me, and it's annoying. I don't love that I do this, but I keep it all in my head until I feel like, okay, when I start writing, I know what I'm gonna be writing now. And then I write chronologically. I don't jump. I don't go, I know what this scene is, and I have to. If I get stuck on even a line of dialogue, I don't like to put in filler and then come back. Like I sit and I wait for me to figure it out, and then I move on. So I don't really remember specifically how the process went for the monkey, but I know that I didn't. It was that same way. Like I plotted it all out internally before going, okay, now I can write and get into the dialogue and how the transitions between scenes and how this goes. But yeah, it was all conceptualized before.
Yeah.
And it was probably, if I say 2 months of writing it, it was probably a month of me just walking around my house thinking about it on car rides. And then that last month was, all right, I will actually write this, getting stuck every couple of pages and then putting it down for a day or two. Yeah.
What's your process like with that? Like, are you sit in silence and write? Do you throw out music? Like, do you have like an environment? Do you go to a coffee shop or anything like that?
I think it was mostly in my house. I think that I've tried that before, but I think there's just too much stimulation. I'm also a super social person, so when I'm in public, there is always a part of me that's like, just come in. So somebody I know. I like every time I walk into uncommon ground, I do a cursory little look around and say, hey man, know me? And so I can get distracted very easily. So no, it's usually me at my house on a computer, or sometimes I'll just take a pad and paper and I sit in a comfy chair or something and try to write stuff out first. There was another first part of the question.
I was always curious because Stephen King used to write with AC/DC blasting in the background.
Oh, yes, the only exception to the rule is if I have a soundtrack in mind for what I'm doing, I'll occasionally put the song that I hope that I can get to play over it. And for Monkey I use all local all local artists, people that I knew in Albany, or friends of friends, or people that I'd seen out on an open mic night or whatever, so I try to keep in touch with some of the music scene. And so I had I just had an Albany playlist, and I went and put a bunch of stuff in it, so I would listen to a lot of my friends' bands or other people that I heard of while in certain scenes, writing certain things. I don't really think it informs anything that I'm doing other than, you know, just trying to sit, just kind of live within an environment and tone for me. But yeah, but no, I usually it's just me alone, and I just get in the zone, you know, try not to get too distracted. Yeah.
I love this process. I mean, being in, you know, I've been in fitness and mental performance for a long time, and I love talking about the art side of it and the creative, because I think there's so much connection with it. We think so much when we're trying to improve ourselves physically, mentally, we think that there's such a set structure of how to do it.
Yes.
Versus it's oftentimes it's just exploration, it's broad strokes.
Yeah.
As you said, it's like just trying some things and throwing out, kind of giving a rough draft
Yes.
aspect, and then you kind of finagle and you fine tune it afterwards. It's like you'll find the goal, but just by stepping into it and just play with it at every time.
And I know a lot of people that do that on the page and on paper, and first draft, second draft, revise this, just scratch that, just try it, see what works. And I have to do that all in my head for whatever reason. I can't, I hate putting something down that I know I don't actually like, and having to look at it and then like, no, I have to go back and change this. I'm like, let me just wait until I know exactly what I want, and then I'll put it on paper.
Yeah.
It saves energy, it saves my hand.
It's so funny.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I've interviewed so many people over the years and asked about their process of putting things together. And it's always interesting because nobody's the same.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different way of flowing, either put it in their head, going for a walk, some have to write it out and word vomit everything out. Some people have to visualize it first. It's like everybody's just a little bit different from there. So you kind of have to just try a bunch of things and kind of figure out what works best for you.
I will say the occasional actual verbal word vomit does help sometimes if I am. Apologies to my girlfriend who has to deal with this usually, but if I'm just like, I'll just talk. Like, I'll tell her about the problem I'm having, or what I'm doing, or maybe, or I will try to. I've had a lot of little breakthroughs on a hitch or a snag that was happening narratively by describing to someone else what the plot is, and as I'm telling it, I'll start to catch little things structurally or narratively, and then like just saying it out loud and trying to tell it to someone, the idea will click, because I'm presenting the information differently. I feel like when it's in your head, it's amorphous and it's all happening at once, as opposed to like, all right, linearly, I'm just going to dictate this out, and then there's the snag, and I just have the idea that fixes that. And then I'll go quiet. Usually it's when we're in the car, and then I'll be telling her the story and stop. Yeah, that can, I saw that, yeah, there it is. And that'll work, and then she's sitting there like, do you want to get to know how it ends?
No, it's all right.
No, I think, no, that makes more sense, okay, anyway, we're back, yeah,
That's so funny. It's like, you know, Elizabeth Gilbert wrote a big magic about that with ideas, and like kind of talking about ideas, things are like living things where they'll just jump at you, and when it's there, you never know where it's gonna come from, but it comes to you for a reason. And just grab onto it when it's there and just play with it. But speaking it out loud, sometimes I totally get it in kind of similar ways. So all right, I want to throw some rapid fire questions at you. Okay. I absolutely love this conversation, Spencer.
So do I. This is great.
It's been blessed. All right, movie you watch the most in your life?
In Bruges.
Aside from your own.
In Bruges is my favorite film, and I can basically quote the whole thing. It's a great dark comedy set in a tiny little Belgian town.
Colin Farrell?
Yep.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. Okay. Movie you were surprised at how much you liked?
That's Ford versus Ferrari. I'm not a big sports guy. I'm definitely not a car guy. The way they shot that movie and the action, I remember being in the movie theater just being exhilarated, going, this is a Matt Damon movie. I had no idea that I was gonna get taken on this type of ride. It just gets your blood pumping. I love that movie.
Oh, yeah, well, it's a Christian Bale because he
Sure.
about that
Yes.
so much. Yeah, that's great. So, all right, favorite things to do in Saratoga?
Ooh, go to Boca for siesta and have a cheap glass of wine and some potatoes. And then that's where you begin the appetizer tour, and then you just bop around, instead of eating dinner, just bop around to Seneca, to Hamlet, to Whitman, and just get a nap and then a drink, and then that's your meal. You can spread it out over a bunch of different places. And yeah, my girl and I call them app tours.
That's a good tour of over right there, so. Vacation, going to the beach or going to the mountains?
Mountains. I like to relax on the beach every once in a while, but I'm not a big sun fan. I'm not just lying and just baking. It's never been for me. I'd much prefer to go camping out like somewhere or just
Do you like Placid ever?
I do, well, there's a film festival in Placid, so I went there for the first time last year, and we're going back in November. One of the films got in, and the film network that I'm a part of also is part of that, and we do our own block every year. So, and when I go to Lake Placid, I stay at the Wildwood Inn, which is a log cabin-y type of place with a fireplace in the room and a dirt log, fresh every morning for night, and that's balcony looking out over the lake. Yeah, so that's mine.
It's such a treasure, this area.
Yeah.
Up there, an hour and 40 minutes off. So.
Yep, and then we'll go camping on Lake George every year. And go to one of the islands, rent a boat, go to one of the islands at the top, and camp on.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
You guys are doing it right. So, window or house?
I don't know, that's too long. I don't mind sacrificing the view if I get a little more lever.
Okay. Who's the director or filmmaker that you'd like to sit down and have a coffee with?
I would love to hang out, I gotta say Martin McDonough, who is the writer director in Bruges and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and Banshees of Inisherin, which came out again with Colin Farrell.
Yep.
He's a playwright, he's an Irish playwright, and his stories are always so tight. It's like a play. It's always every input's got an output. It's a small cast of characters. It's always in little towns or little situations. And they're the incredible dialogue, deeply, darkly comedic, and they're perfect. And I love that kind of storytelling where it's simple in design, but the narrative and the drama that you can mine out of those things is always just so compelling and so interesting. So I would love to talk with that guy and pick his brain about how he manages to do those concise, beautiful pieces.
Oh, so cool. I have to check these out now. So, if you didn't live in Saratoga, where would you live?
We just went out to Colorado for the first time, and I think that might have to be the move for adorable mountain towns where every view is a vista. And yeah, we had a lot of fun with it. That was eye-opening. I've never really been west. I've been to Arizona, Texas, like a flying in, flying out thing. We got to fly into Aspen, Colorado, and drive around a little bit. And it's like, wow, this is gorgeous. All these little towns. Same way that I also like Ireland for the same reason. I've been over there to visit the family. I just would love to disappear into a little mountain town or surfside town. No, you know what? But I do want to. This is a funny question because it's always posed differently, which is like where would you retire? And like coast of Maine, coast of like northeast coast of like boat life.
Okay.
And sailing, or just I love boat culture. It's so fun to me that you hop in a boat and speed over to a bar that's got a dock, and then everyone also lives on the lake and all their boats are there, and you have like it's so cool to me. It's so interesting. So I would love to end up in a place that's on some body of water, just get a little more of a.
So, it's funny, I grew up in Niskuna, and my buddy had a boat on the Mohawk River, and there's a little restaurant, Scotia Lake Ridge, and been there a million different times driving in. They have a dock there, and we went over with our boat, docked it there, and went up completely different
So
experience.
cool, like you're in a different world, you
Yeah.
feel like you're in a movie, it's like nobody, who does
Yeah,
this,
it's
another
like,
thing.
you felt like a pirate, like coming on shore and like, you're going to get
Yes.
the food.
And everyone else is like, yeah,
Yeah.
but or in the winter time, it's snowmobiles. So the
Yes.
whole thing, like snowmobile across the lake to the bar, like it's just a different thing, I think it's so cool.
Oh, beautiful.
Ditch cars.
All right, last one. The show is Inspire Saratoga. So who
Okay.
inspires you the most?
What inspires me? Oh, what a heavy question. For the end. I'm constantly running into and meeting artists and other business owners. Other people in the industry and the film industry, that are just trying to do good work and trying to do good things and building their own little empire where they are, and at the same time being accessible and nice and sweet. I'm trying to think of people in particular. But there's so many great leaders of organizations or businesses in this area, in this community. God damn it, I'm trying to. It's annoying because I know I have an answer to this, and I know that as soon as we got, I'll go.
Just that one
I
person.
just
right
brought
there.
that person,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, it's funny, I'll let you off on this, because I ask this question a lot, and some people have individual answers with people. My answer is always close to yours. It's
Yeah.
like a lot of different people you gain inspiration from different people who are passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
Just seeing somebody who's excited and energized by their life.
and that's it too, and it's anybody that has a genuine like enthusiasm for this, for art, for making things, for taking big swings, for trying to connect people in the community. There's nothing more disheartening for me than doing something that I think is really cool and telling somebody about it and getting a truck. And whether that's going to a local publication and like, hey, you should cover this is really cool, and getting a no thanks. Or telling a friend about it, or a coworker or whoever, and getting like, oh man, cool. It's like when people are like, what, that's awesome, like, what, you're making a movie? Oh my god, what can I do? I want to be part, like, how can I help? Like that. People that are still excited by this kind of creative work and creative energy, and can latch on to things like that, and keep building and ride that high with you. I want to keep people enthusiastic and inspired to do whatever they want to do, and really that's what I like about this community in this area, is that I really think that you can do whatever you want to do if you're putting in enough energy, telling people that you need help and support, and just being open. And so you can really make whatever you want to make here, including movies, as it turns out.
I concur.
Okay.
So Spencer Sherry, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you,
today.
Mike, appreciate it, this was awesome.
Absolutely. So the monkey is out. Where can people go and check out your movie?
The Monkey is playing in Las Vegas at the end of this month at the Stephen King Convention. It's also playing up in Portland, Maine the same weekend. But I suspect the monkey in particular is difficult because I can't put it up publicly anywhere online.
Okay.
By further rules of the contract, but if you follow along with at the Monkey Official Film on Instagram, anytime we do a screening, hopefully soon nearby, you can get a little and come watch it.
Awesome. Brother, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. Listeners, thank you. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope you got some great value from this episode and a little more insight into some inspiring work happening right in this town. If you want to know more about our guests' work and check out more of what they are doing, please click on the links in the show notes below. And along with that, check out the direct link to 5-Minute Mindset. This is a 5-minute video that gives you the 2 best practices that you can do every day in 5 minutes that will create a major impact in your mental strength and resilience. If you are on your own mission to become physically and mentally stronger, these practices will be a serious game changer for you. Seriously. Thank you again for joining me today. I'll see you on the next one.